Germany, because of their Holocaust past, has just almost been even more deferential to Israel over the years than even the United States has. What do you make of this pretty stark change between Merz and Schulz?
Is this moment a turning point in relations between Israel and one of its closest allies?
What the Israeli army is now doing in the Gaza Strip, I no longer understand, frankly, what its objective is. To cause such suffering to the civilian population, as has increasingly been the case in recent days, can no longer be justified as a fight against Hamas terrorism. When lines are crossed where international humanitarian law is now really being violated, then Germany, the German Chancellor, must also say something about it.
I give him credit for being genuinely alarmed by it. One of the other sort of may have helped push this along is Ehud Olmert, the former prime minister. He came out yesterday, day before yesterday, condemning what Netanyahu's government doing as genocide. I mean, he labeled it a war crime. So here you have a prominent former leader of Israel saying that. So, I think that emboldens people like Merz to, suddenly weigh in on this. I think there's growing public opinion in Germany because, number one, they've got a significant Muslim population, both out of primarily coming from Turkey, but from some other regions. So there's actually some political, there's not a big Jewish population anymore in Germany. And so despite the Holocaust past, there is popular support in Germany in favor of the Palestinian cause. So I think he's recognizing that as something he has to pay attention to.
Now, this is coming actually on the heels of about a week ago, another very unusual thing in the West where it was, I believe, France, Canada, and the UK leaders had a joint statement, which were also taking Netanyahu to task. Now, in that particular one, Netanyahu came out firing with both barrels.
Yeah.
Just days after France, the UK, and Canada threatened sanctions against Israel if it doesn't end the war, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hits back.
I say to President Macron, Prime Minister Carney, and Prime Minister Starmer, when mass murderers, rapists, baby killers, and kidnappers thank you, you're on the wrong side of justice. You're on the wrong side of humanity. And you're on the wrong side of history. Now, these leaders may think that they're advancing peace. They're not. They're emboldening Hamas to continue fighting forever.
And of course, the complaints of those leaders had nothing to do with Hamas. It had everything to do with the people of Palestine. And you talk about baby killers. I don't think I need to tell you where the biggest violator of that goes in this conflict. But you see that more and more people are now willing to take out more. The fact that Merz did that after those three, and he didn't give in to the, I'm sure that Netanyahu, well, actually, I'm not sure. Netanyahu so far hasn't come out directly and attacked Merz. In fact, from the Israeli media today, we see this, Gary, if you can toss that headline up there. So far, what they're saying is they're kind of being measured. And this is from the German Israeli media, where it says some cabinet members are pushing for reoccupy Gaza, and Netanyahu is behind them politically. The question is whether the current course can be corrected. In this regard, Haaretz's article noted that German leaders need to stop declaring their responsibility for Israel's right to exist. Quote, their obligation, rather, is to question the way it exists, especially with German support, wrote Iskarov. A friend of Israel, Merz, must choose between only going viral on Instagram or doing all he can to prevent the horrific killing of Palestinian children in Gaza, which Netanyahu has shown no intention to stop anytime soon. So far, the criticism from Israel has been somewhat muted, but the point there is pretty valid. It's one thing to go viral on Instagram and say something, but you got to do something too. Now, it's necessary to say something first, but what do you think is going to happen actually in tangible results?
Well, the trend is if you view it from the standpoint of getting help for the Palestinians, the trend is good because a growing number of countries are stepping up speaking out and criticizing Israel now directly. Countries in the past wouldn't, and even taking symbolic action. I noticed that Ireland suspended all trade relations with Israel. Now, there's not much trade, so it's just a symbolic act. But more and more countries are lining up to do that, and it is the starvation of the people that has been, I think, the red line. Finally, you can blow them up, you can shoot them, you can run them over, but by God, don't let them starve. Don't let them be hungry. And okay, if that's our red line that finally gets everybody enraged, good. But the problem is the political divisions in Israel continue to grow and widen. The fracture is deepening. Yet, like 82% of the population, if you polled them on what are we going to do with the Palestinians, eliminate the Palestinians, that's 82% of the people.
Yeah, that was a shocking poll result. I saw that yesterday.
Yeah, so Israel's got a very deep moral crisis because the if you will, the philosophical idea of Israel was this place of justice and morality and law. And yet, Netanyahu lies about what the Palestinians did when he and his own government are beheading children with bombs. They are killing tens of thousands, well, actually more than 60,000. Some made the number maybe upwards of 100,000 people. They've raped prisoners. They're starving people. The only thing they haven't done is line them up in a gas chamber and hit them with Zyklon B. That's the only thing these Israelis haven't done. Other than that, they would have been a complete imitation of Heinrich Himmler's crowd.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine it, and to understand a lot of the actual Holocaust survivors. There's still some out there have been against this because they said it's what was done to us was barbaric and inhumane. Don't do the same to someone else in our name. That's one of the things they talk about a lot.
Yeah, I mean those survivors that are saying that they're 89, 90 years old. They're not younger than that.
Right.
But they remember what was done to them, and now they're seeing it again. Only the Israelis are doing it to these Palestinians.
Yeah, it's just gut wrenching, and there's no justification for it whatsoever. But it just does seem, though, that people are starting to pay attention, and I wonder if there's some correlation between what the three leaders did a week ago, what Merz did day before yesterday, and then what Trump did yesterday, because he was asked in the Oval Office what he's going to end up doing about the issue with Iran. And this is a quick background for some of our viewers. There has apparently been a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of angst and even arguments between the U.S. and Israeli side over what to do about Iran. Israel clearly wants to attack Iran. They've been begging for this for a long time. They tried to get the Biden administration to green light an attack on Iran. They didn't do it. They've been trying to pressure Trump into doing it. And for one of the few times, Trump publicly announced yesterday that he is standing in opposition to Netanyahu, at least so far.
Did you warn Prime Minister Netanyahu against taking some sort of actions that could disrupt the talks there in a phone call last week?
Well, I'd like to be honest. Yes, I did. Next question, please.
Doesn't that on sanctions?
I did, yeah.
If Senate Republicans want to push
It's not a warning. I said I don't think it's appropriate.
What exactly did you tell him? Did you
I just said I don't think it's appropriate. We're having very good discussions with him, and I said I don't think it's appropriate right now. Because if we can settle it with a very strong document, very strong, I want it very strong where we can go in with inspectors, we can take whatever we want, we can blow up whatever we want, but nobody getting killed. We can blow up a lab, but nobody's going to be in the lab, as opposed to everybody being in the lab and blowing it up, right? Two ways of doing it. Yeah, I told him this would be inappropriate to do right now because we're very close to a solution. Now, that could change at any moment, could change with a phone call. But right now, I think they want to make a deal, and if we can make a deal, save a lot of lives.
Now, I was told recently by a source in Washington that has some access to some of these people, and they tell me that behind the scenes, Trump is absolutely adamant about not wanting to go down the military path. He's trying to find a way out of that, and I think it's one of the reasons why he hasn't done so far. But do you see this building pressure against Netanyahu and these atrocities that they're doing on the population of Palestine is maybe going to help Trump avoid that terrible outcome?
It should. You know, again, when we're dealing with Trump's submission to the Zionist lobby, it's always difficult to say, argue that he's going to stand firm against them, because I don't really think we can point to a case where he has rejected their advice or their pressure. The United States is right now taking steps militarily to engage Iran. You know, the redeployment that took place of some of the B-2 bombers was replaced with a movement of B-52s and F-16s into
Diego Garcia.
Yeah, Diego Garcia. So there are some other things that I've learned that the military's basically been positioned and is ready to strike. So it really boils down to whether or not Trump is going to accept Iran's position that it will not give up the right to peaceful enrichment of uranium. They will retain the right to do 3.6 and then have in place a rock solid guarantee for.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the National Non-Proliferation Treaty, international law, gives every country the right to reprocess. So we don't have any legal standing to demand that they not do that. Is that
correct.
Accurate?
That's correct. But the other thing is, and the Trump's talked about, is trying to either inspect Iranian missiles or have some control over the missile force Iran has, as well as dictate who they can and cannot talk to with respect to Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. Now, those are non-negotiable points for Iran. They're not going to. They will negotiate on the uranium. They will. In fact, they signed, even when Trump withdrew from the JCPOA, they continued to abide by it, but the Europeans refused to lift the economic sanctions as required under that agreement. So Iran's been burned before, and so they're not looking to go in with a trust us, we'll treat you well kind of deal. They want some ironclad guarantees, but they're willing to give ironclad guarantees, which means allow on-site inspection, verifiable both by IAEA and, if necessary, even U.S. And maybe even Israeli inspectors. They'll say, hey, we got nothing to hide.
Yeah, well, we'll see if they end up doing that. But no matter what, I certainly hope that any kind of a conflict there is avoided. It would be just terrible for the U.S. interest. I mean, it could be deadly for the U.S. if we get into a war. I don't think that Trump realizes how vulnerable we are in the region to Iranian counterattacks and missile attacks all throughout the Middle East. We're very, very vulnerable there. We don't need to find that out. And I hope that this momentum continues on. I mean, not even just for our own interests, which I'm obviously really keen in on, but also the Palestinian people, because it is just egregious that a whole category and a whole group of people are being methodically starved to death and pummeled to where they can't even do anything more than exist. And that is just egregious on a humanitarian, on a human being level. And I would like, if nothing else, to see all that come to an end by whatever means, whatever pressure can be brought to bear.
Well, and what's really damning of the West and of the United States, no one who wants to argue why the Palestinians are doing what they're doing, to try to present, if you will, there really is an other side to this story. Not only are you silenced in the United States, but then you're accused of anti-Semitism for trying to have a rational discussion. The real irony has been you've got non-Jews and even some who are atheists accusing Jews of being anti-Semitic, Jews who come out and speak out against what Israel is doing against the Zionists. And, it's like, don't they, the people really that divorced from reality? They don't understand how sick and twisted this is, that non-Jews are accusing Jews of being anti-Semitic because those Jews condemn the genocidal behavior of these Zionists.
Yeah. No, they're not aware is the bottom line there, because they can only see one viewpoint and everybody else is a bad guy and an enemy. And they can't. And it's hard for me to understand, and it's egregious to observe, but that certainly is the reality.
Yeah.
But one of the ways that we can get rid of it, and there is apparently some positive momentum, you see these leaders here have been moved, the three European leaders, then you see Merz joining in with it, Trump now even being tepid with Israel and openly saying that I push back on this, which that hadn't happened in a long time either. So I think that all the movement on the groundswell of a lot of people in all these different countries being more and more vocal about it, even despite some of the pressure you mentioned where people label it an anti-Semite and all that kind of stuff, they're still rising up and saying things anyway. They're not being silenced. And I think that now the leaders are responding to that. So the more people start talking about the truth and what's really happening, the more that cumulatively we can actually have some impact. And I'm encouraged by that. I am.
Yeah. No, I share your optimism on that. And what's interesting is even Trump also has talked optimistically about possibility of a deal, ceasefire for Gaza.
Yeah. I want to encourage that as well. Anything moving in that direction, we are all about. And but thanks very much for coming on today, Larry, as always. And for those who just can't get enough Larry, and it's probably all of us, go to sonar21.com where you can keep up to date with all the stuff Larry's got coming on. There's some good ones right there. The War Powers Act. I want to go see what that one's about because we seem to have lost it.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's a good one. Anything on there do you want to highlight before we let people go if they want to go look at something?
No, I'm like a dairy farmer. I try to milk the cow every day.
Very good. All right. Well, we want people to go see that. And we look forward to having you on next week, as we always do. All right. Well, thank you very much. And if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe. And as a quick reminder, we're on podcast. So you have more than one way to get hold of your Daniel Davis Deep Dive Fix per day. Go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, and you'll find us waiting there for you. Thank you very much, folks. And we'll see you tomorrow on Daniel Davis Deep Dive.